So we've seen this slide before, I think during the first lesson of this unit. And the main difference between experimental and theoretical probabilities is that experimental means it's based off of something that has already happened. So on the bell work, when we were looking at how many outcomes there are with tossing 3 coins, that is theoretical because we didn't actually toss any coins. And you could say, well, there's 8 outcomes because of the theoretical probability of the way it's set up, tossing 3 coins. If we actually started tossing a coin, let's say 100 times, then we would have some experimental evidence to go off of. And then we can make our future predictions based on those experimental values that we have acquired from actually tossing those coins. Of course, you could use surveys, studies, or questionnaires for these. And yet, when you have dice or cards or maybe spinning something, yes, there are those theoretical probabilities to start out with, but once you start to spin or do whatever it is whatever game it is you're playing, then things generally become more experimental. Of course, you can always have theoretical and then compare them with the experimental results, which then may help you to make perhaps even better decisions based on the 2 forms of information there. So today's objective is based on the experimental probabilities. And we're going to be using fractions like we see there at the bottom. Now you can use fundamental counting principle to find the total possibilities or results. But really, we're just going to use those experimental values in order to figure out the totals and then the probabilities themselves. So we should have both values when we're looking at the problems in today's assignment and in today's classwork. So you own a small business selling bagels. You know that in the last week, 78 customers paid cash, 18 customers used a debit card, and 118 customers used a credit card. Based on the results, express the probability that your next customer will pay with a debit card as a fraction in simplest form. So there's a couple of things we got to acknowledge it for our probability here. Of course, it will be a fraction, and that's okay. I think for me, I'd probably start with the total possible results. Or possibilities, I guess. Now, you could say that there's 3 possibilities. They could pay with cash, debit card, or credit card, but that would be more theoretical if we were doing it that way. What we have to do here is figure out how many customers have paid with these 3 forms of payment. So I guess I'll start with cash. Then we'll use look at debit cards, and then credit cards. Okay, so cash, we can see that there were 78 people that paid with cash, 18 with a debit card, and then 118 with a credit card. So all I'm going to do is take these and add them together to see how many total customers have gone through. On my calculator, I got 78 plus 18 plus 118. And when I push enter, this will tell me how many total customers paid, I guess, for bagels. That's 214 right there. Now again, this is my total possibility, so there's 214 customers that actually did come through this business that sells bagels. Okay, well that's good. We now know the denominator, but what about the numerator? The numerator is based off of debit cards. And we know that debit cards, there were 18 customers that paid with debit cards as seen in the problem. So how often does someone pay with a debit card? Well, there were 18 customers out of the 214. All right, now there's a fraction, and that's great. But what we would like is for this to be a simplified fraction, and it is simplifiable because in the ones place value we have two even numbers. So I just put this in the calculator with the N over D button, and the calculator does simplify this for me as 9 over 107. Okay, now if you wanted to change that to a decimal, just push the double arrow button right above enter, and you could see that as a decimal would come out as 0.08411,215, which is about 8.4%. I know it didn't ask for those last two, but in case it does in the future, we need to know how to do that, just like we did 2 lessons ago.